Kamala Harris gathering more endorsement from Democrat leaders is sure to get the nomination for president. Good morning. Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all international news resources and my team. Following are the news which have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian, Canadian channels and AP, AFP and Reuters news agencies from Democratic Party. Secret Service chief has resigned in America. Polio virus has been detected in Gaza. A black woman shot by a white policeman in Illinois, USA. Macron of France is trying to manage Olympic Games. Kenya political situation is still unstable. Now watch the
Good evening, I'm Amna Nawaz. Jeff Bennett is away. On the NewsHour tonight, the Secret Service director resigns in the wake of sharp criticism for the agency's failure to protect Donald Trump from an assassination attempt.
We have 105 days until Election Day, and in that time, we've got some work to do.
Vice President Kamala Harris makes her first campaign stop in the battleground state of Wisconsin as she consolidates support from Democratic politicians and donors. And activists demand justice and reform after body camera footage shows an Illinois sheriff's deputy shooting and killing a black woman in her home.
She was a mother, she has children. That is an impact for generations that is going to be laid upon that family.
Vice President Kamala Harris is starting to lay out her game plan against Donald Trump. Speaking in Milwaukee, Harris told voters the November election will be a, quote, choice between freedom and chaos. The trip comes as Harris is getting more support from powerful allies back in Washington. Laura Barone-Lopez has more.
Thank you.
In Milwaukee.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says his department is launching an investigation into Delta Airlines over its treatment of passengers following last week's global tech outage. Authorities will look at whether the airline has been complying with laws around flight delays and cancellations. Delta has canceled more than 6,600 flights since last Friday, far more than any other airline. Long lines, unclaimed bags, and stranded passengers.
This is 1:15 in the morning in the Atlanta airport.
As frustration and tensions run high inside Atlanta's International Airport, where some have been stuck for the last 4 days.
Look around, there's bags everywhere. And there's still families just laying on the ground since Friday. So this is ridiculous.
Delta Airlines, based in Atlanta, is struggling to restore service to normal, canceling another 400 flights today. That is 10 times more than the next worst performer since the outage. Yesterday, Delta accounted for nearly 2/3 of all flight cancellations worldwide. More than half of the airline's IT systems run on Microsoft, more so than other airlines, leading to issues even locating and rescheduling crews. Passengers across the country have spent days trying to reach their destinations.
Communications have been very scarce. We've gotten text messages, about, updates to gate changes and, flight departures, but they've been very scarce. The app, I think, is back up to running at some degree. It's not as bad as yesterday, but it's hard to get a hold of a representative. I contacted Delta. The wait time was 12 hours to get a hold of an agent.
Transportation Secretary Buttigieg said his department has received hundreds of complaints and says Delta must inform its customers that they're entitled to a refund if they choose not to travel. Delta says it's issuing transfers and travel vouchers. But the bad news isn't over yet. Delays and cancellations are expected for several more days. Also today, federal aviation authorities are looking into Southwest Airlines after a series of safety-related incidents. Most recently, a jet flying as low as 150 feet over water while still miles away from its destination of Tampa Bay Airport. In a statement, the agency said, quote, the FAA has increased oversight of Southwest Airlines to ensure it's complying with federal safety regulations. Southwest said today it is cooperating with the FAA investigation. New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez will resign on August 20th. Pressure had been growing on the 70-year-old Democrat to step down after he was convicted last week on all 16 criminal counts at a federal trial in New York. Following the verdict, Menendez had remained defiant, telling reporters he would appeal, but he dodged questions about whether he would resign. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, also a Democrat, will select someone to serve the remainder of Menendez's term, which ends in January. Thousands of people have evacuated Canada's Jasper National Park to escape wildfires threatening the area. Blazes are burning on both sides of the town of Jasper in the Canadian Rockies. Authorities gave residents and park visitors 5 hours to clear out overnight. Evacuees say they fled west through smoke and ash, hitting bumper-to-bumper traffic at times. By day, eyewitness video captured flames consuming trees and smoke billowing into the sky. Local officials in Ethiopia said today that at least 229 people have died in recent mudslides triggered by heavy rains. Children and pregnant women were among the victims in a remote part of the country's south. Many of the victims were killed on Monday morning as they tried to help survivors of a mudslide from a day earlier. At least 5 people have been pulled out alive. Landslides are common in the country's rainy season, which is expected to last until mid-September. Palestinian factions Hamas and Fatah have agreed to form a government together. The two groups issued a joint statement during meetings in Beijing, but they provided no details on how or when the government would be formed. Hamas and Fatah have been bitter enemies since a bloody civil war in the Gaza Strip ended in 2007. Previous agreements between the two groups have failed. Israel remains opposed to any post-war government that includes Hamas, and they swiftly denounced the agreement, as did the U.S.
Hamas is a terrorist organization, something that we obviously made clear before October 7th. But when it comes to governance of Gaza at the end of the conflict, there can't be a role for a terrorist organization. Hamas has long been a terrorist organization. They have the blood of innocent civilians, both Israeli and Palestinian, on their hands.
All this comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting Washington, where he'll deliver an address to the joint session of Congress tomorrow. Then on Thursday, he'll meet with President Biden at the White House, as well as with former President Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. The Army has disciplined 3 reserve officers for dereliction of duty over last year's mass shooting in Maine. Last October, reservist Robert Card killed 18 people before taking his own life. In a report released today, the Army detailed multiple failures in Card's chain of command, including, quote, procedural breakdowns in Card's medical care from the military hospital to the civilian hospital where he was committed. But it cleared the Army of blame. Instead, the report recommends that the Army Reserve review and update its mental health policies and procedures. A district court judge in Iowa has ruled that the state's near-total abortion ban will take effect on Monday at 8 a.m. local time. The law, passed last year, bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. A judge had blocked it from being enforced, but the state's Supreme Court ordered last month that the hold be lifted. In response, Iowa's Republican Governor Kim Reynolds issued a statement saying, quote, today is a victory for life. On Wall Street today, stocks ended a tad lower as investors waited on earnings reports from some big tech companies. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost more than 50 points on the day. The Nasdaq slipped 10 points, bringing it just below the 18,000-point mark. The S&P 500 also ended slightly lower. Still to come on the News Hour, the family of another American journalist held in Russia calls for her release. And we unpack the claims that artificial intelligence could help counteract loneliness.
There's ash coming down and the fire was raging.
One of Canada's most stunning national parks evacuated and under threat this Tuesday night.
We were all terrified.
How hard it is getting out of Jasper, and where will thousands of people go? The Democrats' high hopes for Kamala Harris. Can she set herself apart from Joe Biden and defeat Donald Trump?
Donald Trump wants to take our country backward.
A record high number of asylum seekers in Canada, where they're coming from, and fears a Trump White House could fuel a new influx. And the grateful thread.
thankfully we're still here.
The Canadian family business stitching success for a century.
Tonight, breaking news, Vice President Kamala Harris, now the presumptive Democratic nominee. ABC News now reporting she has the delegate support she needs. And tonight, her first campaign speech in battleground Wisconsin. And just in tonight, the new national poll taken after President Biden dropped out. Donald Trump versus Vice President Kamala Harris and what it shows already. Tonight, Harris campaigning in Milwaukee, telling supporters she's ready to prosecute the case against Donald Trump, framing it as a choice between freedom, compassion, and rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate. And that new national poll just out tonight, showing just how close this race already is. Mary Bruce standing by, and what ABC News has learned tonight about selection of a running mate. Also tonight, President Biden back at the White House for the first time since coming down with COVID. Now set to address the nation from the Oval Office in prime time tomorrow night. We'll carry it live right here on ABC. And what we're learning about this already. Also breaking news 24 hours after her contentious hearing on Capitol Hill, Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle resigns. And just in tonight, what the Washington Post is first to report with regard to Donald Trump's rallies moving forward. The reported request from the Secret Service. The extraordinary images tonight, the very close call for visitors at Yellowstone National Park. What authorities are saying tonight. The storms this evening from Texas all the way up to Washington, D.C. to New York City. Ginger Z standing by with the forecast. Tonight, the chaos for Delta passengers continues. In some places, the airline now under federal investigation. The scare in the Northeast tonight, right off the East Coast, a whale leaping from the water, landing on a boat. The big news involving Celine Dion tonight. Will she make her comeback at the Olympics? And when? What we're hearing about this. And at the end tonight, the mother who gave her little girl her cell phone because she wanted to record treasures. But when mom looked at that phone, what she saw, what she heard, it's truly something.
From ABC. Tonight, Kamala Harris holding the first rally of her new presidential campaign as President Biden prepares to address the nation. Harris taking the stage in battleground Wisconsin as the Democrats' de facto nominee. Her support in the party growing, today winning endorsements from the top two Democrats in Congress. And our new reporting on her Veep stakes. Who's on the short list, and will we see a Kamala Harris-Donald Trump debate? All this as President Biden ends his COVID isolation and travels back to the White House. The major primetime address he plans to give about his decision to drop out. Also tonight, the Secret Service director resigning, a day after taking heat from Congress over the failure to prevent the assassination attempt on Donald Trump. On Capitol Hill, protesters arrested ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress. And what Netanyahu said after arriving in the U.S. that's raising new hope of a ceasefire. Delta Airlines canceling hundreds more flights for a fifth day. Now the feds launching an investigation. Caught on camera, the whale landing on a boat off New Hampshire. Plus the massive explosion at Yellowstone. And back in time to 1924, how the Olympics have changed in the century since Paris last hosted the Games.
This is NBC Nightly News.
Yes! I know! Relax. There's enough of me to go around. Happy Tuesday, everyone. So Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle has resigned today after the failed assassinated attempt against Trump. She broke the glass ceiling, but was no match for a sloped roof.
Well played.
So what's next for Cheadle? Well, let's hope she finds a job more suited to her skill set. President Biden put out a statement praising Cheadle for her, quote, honor, courage, and incredible integrity. But then we turned over the statement and found this message: help, Jill's holding me hostage. And speaking of Jill, where's she been, huh? And come to think of it, where's Hunter? I hope they're not. What? I mean, I'm just hoping. It's a good hope. President Biden has scheduled a primetime. Didn't see that one coming, did you?
This Pornhub moment.
Yes.
By Greg
Stepmom. That's on his bucket list.
Yes, well.
President Biden has scheduled a primetime address for 8 p.m. tomorrow, helping America to breathe a much-needed sigh of relief because he's preempting Jesse Waters. Prior to the address, the president has been in high-level meetings with his new advisors. The White House press secretary appeared on The View today in her first interview since Biden dropped out. She was probably auditioning for the job, but she didn't meet the minimum weight requirement. Kamala Harris is already floating names for VP, but she's careful not to choose candidates who might outshine her. And that leaves her with a Teddy Ruxpin doll, a plunger, and a rock. Finally, Jimmy Carter's death announcement was immediately ruled as fake. So at least we know one president's alive. All right, to the news. Kimberly Cheadle has resigned. This after a disastrous hearing where she dodged questions like they were shot from a 20-year-old loner on...
Are you ready to get to work?
Tonight, Vice President Harris hits the campaign trail in the battleground state of Wisconsin.
Donald Trump wants to take our country backward.
With renewed enthusiasm from voters and Democratic leaders.
Kamala Harris will fight for our future.
Plus, the head of the Secret Service resigns in the wake of the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump.
On July 13th, we failed.
I commend her for stepping down, but I think she should have done it sooner.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Vice President Harris tells ecstatic Wisconsin Democrats the baton is in our hands as she makes the case she's leading a new generation into the future. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. Today, in the first rally of her presidential campaign, the vice president met a boisterous crowd in the must-win state of Wisconsin. It was a relatively short speech, but Harris pulled no punches, framing the 2024 race as the prosecutor versus the convicted felon. She made that case against former President Donald Trump, comparing him to the predators and fraudsters she faced as California's Attorney General. The VP is also racking up more key endorsements. Democratic leaders Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries threw their weight behind her today. When the winner of November's election is sworn in. Tonight, the Justice Department says it's assessing the deadly police shooting of Sonia Massey, the Illinois woman who called 911 about a possible prowler, only to be shot and killed by a sheriff's deputy in her own home. CBS's Roxana Severi has new information about the former deputy charged with Massey's murder. We do want to warn you that some of this video is disturbing.
It's one of the worst police shooting videos ever.
State records obtained by CBS News show Sean Grayson, a 30-year-old former private first class in the Army, worked for 5 different law enforcement agencies in just under 3 years, before being hired by the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office last year. CBS News has also learned Grayson was charged twice with driving under the influence of alcohol in 2015 and 2016. He pleaded guilty both times. Ben Crump is an attorney for Massey's family.
Why was he even hired by the Sheriff's Department?
A DUI conviction is not a disqualification from law enforcement in Illinois. Today, some of Massey's family members accuse the sheriff's office of trying to initially cover up what happened. Now, Massey's father is demanding Sheriff Jack Campbell resign.
I think it's a culture to treat this family this bad. If it were not for that camera footage, they'd have lied their way right out of this. So he needs to resign.
It'll take you so long to answer the door. This comes a day after the release of body camera video revealing the moments just before Grayson shot Massey in the face.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
You only watched a little bit of the video. You had to stop.
Yeah, I can't finish it.
Massey's 17-year-old son, Malachi, and her mother, Donna, say they're still in shock.
This can't be real. I don't know how this could be real. I'm sorry.
In an email to CBS News, Sheriff Campbell said he will not be resigning. Grayson has been fired from the sheriff's office. He's being held in jail without bond and has pleaded not guilty to the murder charges. Nora?
Thinking of her family, Roxana Severi, thank you so much. Delta Airlines is facing a federal investigation after another day of flight cancellations following that global tech outage. That story's next.
United Charter Schools, where students enjoy experiential learning, which turn their study ventures into adventures. For admissions, call 042.
Some Delta passengers have been struggling to get home for 5 days now after that tech outage that grounded planes around the world. CBS's Chris Van Cleve now reports the Department of Transportation is investigating.
Inside Delta's mega hub in Atlanta, the airline is still struggling. More than 5,400 flights have been canceled since Friday. That's also how long Bradley Ripple has been trying to get out of there.
The delays have been one after the other, and then it gets canceled every night.
At New York's LaGuardia Airport, Tiffany Osborne and her 13-year-old daughter Olivia were stuck since Saturday. They're finally headed home to Birmingham.
Offer something, offer a snack, a meal, something. But we had nothing.
After more than 3,000 complaints, the Department of Transportation is hoping its investigation will provide answers and accountability.
We're concerned about how the outcomes for passengers on Delta seem to be so different from what we're seeing across the airline industry.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Stories about people in lines of more than 100 people with just one customer service agent serving them at an airport, that's completely unacceptable.
And the fallout from the CrowdStrike software outage isn't limited to air travel. The backlog now includes hospitals and courts. The company has more than 29,000 global clients. In California, thousands of medical computers remain offline. Some drivers in Massachusetts still can't get cars inspected at the DMV, and in Ohio, county government offices are also lagging behind.
We have a couple screens that are operating in each office, so we're limping along.
DOT estimates 500,000 flyers have been impacted. Delta's president says it may be Thursday or Friday before things are back to normal, and a number of senators are calling out Delta's customer service response, particularly around refunds. Nora?
Important story. Chris Van Cleve, thank you very much. Eye on America is next as we return to an Oklahoma community impacted by a destructive tornado. This year's tornado season is on track to be the third busiest ever. In addition to the $28 billion in damage and more than 40 people killed so far this year by severe weather, there's a devastating emotional toll when a community is destroyed. And as CBS's Dave Malkoff reports in tonight's Eye on America, the rebuild unfolds after the attention fades.
You think we can do it?
Yes.
This is what Bartlesville, Oklahoma has looked like for the past 2.5 months since a powerful tornado ripped through here.
Our family didn't get hurt, but it's kind of sad to know that other families did get hurt also. They got hurt really bad.
And 8-year-old River Garrett had to grow up quick.
I was in tears, because I didn't expect this much damage.
Your life is a little bit different now than it was before.
It doesn't even feel like the same place, and I say it to myself, that I can't make this about me.
All the news crews are now long gone. River and his grandmother, Jimmy Blake, and the rest of the folks in Bartlesville are trying to put what they can back together.
This was part of the wall in the office building.
Oh, yeah.
The tornado did this to their home, powerful enough to blow a family photo with River's grandmother in it, 21 miles away to Danny Lemon's cow pastures.
So this is it?
Yep. There's a bunch of plywood and insulation laying around. I told my wife, I said, I know who these people are.
So far this year, there have been more than 1,000 reports of tornadoes in this nation. Meteorologists rate these tornadoes on a scale that goes from 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The one that hit here was near the top of that scale. Winds up to 200 miles an hour.
Yes, this is where we build instruments and we put them onto vehicles so we can go out in the field and study storms.
Harold Brooks studies severe storms for the National Weather Service.
I think when people see these tornadoes, they think that at some point the buildings are going to get just reconstructed.
There are small towns that have been almost destroyed completely by tornadoes that essentially never rebuilt because it's just hard to recover when there's no infrastructure left.
That was our meat processing plant over there. It's gone.
Johnny Kelly is the mayor of Barnsdall, Oklahoma. That tornado in May hit the heart of his community the hardest. 2 people died.
There's 83 homes that are gone. I don't know if there's enough adjectives in the vocabulary to describe this deal.
It seems like there's a short period of time when the eyes of the nation are on your city, but after that, there's still a big need here.
No one's here, and we're left here to deal with what's left. It's an emotional roller coaster for people.
A lot of people came in here and cleaned up, but it's not even half finished.
Do you have one wish for the future?
It's going to take a while to get used to, but I hope this all gets cleaned up and you have a new house.
You want this part to be over like that?
Yeah, to the future, so I don't have to think about it anymore.
You need a time machine.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
It took 120 years to build this community. It will take some time to rebuild. For Eye on America, Dave Malkoff in Bartlesville, Oklahoma.
And the story of a young girl that will reel you in. That's next. Finally, tonight's Heart of America, meet 12-year-old Lucy Moore, who in May landed a 24-inch American shad and also landed in the record books. Earlier this month, she became the only female and the youngest person by a decade to earn Maryland's master angler status after catching 10 different trophy-sized types of fish. Lucy, who plans to become a marine biologist when she grows up, says she's been fishing almost her entire life.
My dad taught me how to do it since I was at least 2.
She really enjoyed doing it, and then it kind of evolved into what you're seeing right now.
It just, so many people doubt that girls could do some of the things that boys will do. I've just proved it.
We don't doubt you. Master angler Lucy Moore, she's tonight's Heart of America. And that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell. Good night.
I think we should just leave. Jasper's famed forests in flames. Even as people fled, fire burned to the edges of their exit.
Look at this lineup. The only place to go apparently is west.
Late Monday night, an evacuation alert suddenly became an order to leave. The park packed with summer vacationers. As many as 25,000 residents and visitors were forced to drive through the night on a single highway through soot and darkness to safety.
Everybody waited hours and hours and hours, and it was horrible. It was awful for everybody involved.
I just got smoke here and smoke here, and the highway was just pretty busy, like just a long row of taillights. And a long row of lights behind us in the rearview mirror.
Wherever evacuees ended up, many spent the night sleeping in cars. Those that went west into BC are being asked to go back to Alberta. As the fire burns out of control, there are fears people are still hiking and camping in the area, unaware of the fire emergency.
If you have a way of contacting those in the backcountry, they should travel to reach a trailhead.
And within the town site, the RCMP spent the day convincing about 40 people to leave.
So there are still some residents that are in there. Police are actively going house to house, to apartments, speaking with these people and encouraging them to leave.
Alberta working closely with Parks Canada.
We told them that we were prepared to help them whichever way they need us to, and they're taking us up on that offer.
Winds and scorching temperatures are making for erratic fire behaviour.
Like this.
And it could get even worse. Late in the day, the RCMP guided media through the park until it got too dangerous.
So yeah, it's a very volatile and evolving situation.
Another fire east of the town was growing too fast. The job of protecting the people and the park not over yet. Georgie Smythe, CBC News.
Tonight, the out-of-control wildfire creeping ever closer to one of the country's most visited national parks. The emergency exodus as thousands flee the soot, smoke, and ash.
It was gridlock on the highways.
The race to seek refuge in BC, where hundreds more fires are raging.
Well, there was a big panic. Everybody's got to get out right now.
The first rally of Kamala Harris's fresh presidential campaign. The former prosecutor says she has what it takes to take on a convicted felon.
I know Donald Trump's type.
The Canadian Medical Association's new warning about for-profit care. Plus, going for gold to make the Paris Games the most eco-friendly ever. And swirling speculation about a Celine comeback at the opening ceremony. And on a mission to score a fundraising touchdown to tackle cancer.
Can't wait to see it full of football fans.
9 Canadian stadiums, 15 days, and 1 die-hard superfan.
Touchdown Runners!
France 24, every art form.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
You're watching Daybreak here on France 24. I'm Stuart Norval. Good to have you with us today. Here's the main headlines. The French President Emmanuel Macron calls again for compromises as he says he will not decide on a new Prime Minister for France until after the Olympic Games. The left bloc now putting forward a name for Prime Minister, saying it should be them who decides who gets the job. The first major poll in the US since Joe Biden announced he will not seek re-election shows Kamala Harris narrowly beating Donald Trump this November. And as Harris tells her first rally that Americans have a choice between a country of freedom and compassion or a country of chaos, fear and hate. We'll hear from our correspondent Fraser Jackson in Washington. And the first Olympic events are getting underway today, 2 days ahead of the official opening ceremony. Football and rugby both crucial for France's medal hopes. In this news, though, we report from Marseille, centre for the upcoming sailing events. A compromise are needed, says Emmanuel Macron, but until mid-August, France needs to be focused on the Olympic Games. Macron grilled in a live television interview last night here as the French Parliament remains deadlocked. He appealed for centrists and near-centrists come together to form a majority. The left-wing bloc, though, that won most seats in the legislative elections earlier this month, crying foul, they've eventually put forward a name for a new Prime Minister and say that Macron should allow them to form a government. Badika Bahel has this report.
After 16 days of butting heads, the French Left Alliance, the New Popular Front, has selected which candidate to put forward to President Macron as Prime Minister, Lucie Castet.
The largest bloc in the National Assembly presents to the President of the Republic the proposal to appoint Madame Lucie Castet as Prime Minister.
Unknown to the general public, 37-year-old Castet is an economist and senior civil servant with a background in NGO work and currently the finance director for Paris City Hall. Castet told news agency AFP that she accepts the offer in all humility but with a great deal of conviction. And if appointed PM, she'd work to reverse Macron's pension reform, which upped the retirement age from 62 to 64. The president, when questioned about the new candidate, dismissed the matter and said he wouldn't choose a prime minister until after the Paris Olympics.
The incumbent majority lost this election. This is not about the names put forward by political parties. No, the question is what majority can come out of the National Assembly so that the French government can be able to pass reforms, a budget, and achieve progress for the country.
The France Unbowed party says there's a majority in the National Assembly in favour of rolling back the retirement age. In addition to the 193 MPs from the French left bloc, the 126 from the extreme right National Rally are likely to also vote for this change. But this could take several weeks or even months, especially as President Macron has made it clear that there will be no French government before mid-August at the earliest.
Now, Kamala Harris narrowly beating rival Donald Trump in a new national presidential poll, the largest poll since the US President Joe Biden ended his re-election campaign. Harris on at 44 compared to 42% for Trump. And as Harris carried out her first campaign rally since Biden announced he will step down, she said Americans have a choice between a country of freedom and compassion or a country of chaos, fear and hate. Well, let's analyse that rally.
The nation attempt will be released in 2 months.
Demonstrators against the war in Gaza have begun gathering at some key sites in Washington ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress later today. Netanyahu already in the city ahead as well of meetings with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris later in the week, also demonstrating those family and Israeli hostages that Netanyahu do more to ensure their freedom. Let's hear from some of the demonstrators.
We need the world to be a better world for everybody, for the people in Gaza that are good, for the people in Israel that are good.
When it comes as the World Health Organization voices alarm about the potential spread of polio in Gaza, traces of the virus have been detected in several sewage water samples. WHO says it's unclear if anyone in the war-torn territory has actually been infected, and a team of...
As children play between rows of tents in Deir al-Balah, sewage runs along the ground. The wastewater has become a booster vaccine against polio.
Venezuela's main opposition alliance is denouncing technical problems in the Electoral Authority's website to accredit its witnesses for this Sunday's presidential elections. The Unitary Platform Coalition claims it registered more than 90,000 witnesses for the election, but technical difficulties have prevented the printing of the necessary credentials to enable them to exercise their function. Political parties in Venezuela appoint observers in the elections to guarantee the correct development of the process and denounce irregularities. Taiwan is bracing itself for the arrival of a strengthening Typhoon Garami. Flights cancelled, financial markets shut, and the military on stand. Amid forecasts of torrential rain there, it's expected to be the strongest storm to hit Taiwan in 8 years, due to make landfall on the northeast on Wednesday evening. The typhoon already packing gusts of up to 227 kilometres per hour. Now, there are just so many sports to squeeze into the Olympic Games that they even get going before the opening ceremony. Today, those first events, football and rugby sevens as well, group games are getting underway. The men's sevens, France faced the US this afternoon here. France's men did not take part in sevens 4 years ago, although the women were silver medalists. Then later tonight, as France's men's football team, coached by Thierry Henry, take on the US in their opening group game in Marseille. Now, Marseille, the city, is better known, though, perhaps for the sailing events, which are soon to get underway there. Siobhan Silk has this report.
These are no leisure boaters in the Bay of Marseille. They're the world's best, making their final preparations as the Mediterranean city gets ready to host the Olympic sailing competition.
We're very happy that one of the most beautiful bays in the world, the Bay of Marseille, will be the showcase of the Olympics in France.
This was a perfect place to see the regattas.
We have 1 week here in Marseille to watch our team from Holland.
330 athletes from more than 60 nations are here for the Olympic regatta that begins this weekend, bringing a wave of enthusiasm to the city.
I can't wait. I'm interested in several of the races.
I'm happy it's happening here. A joyful event like this brings people together.
There's a lot more tourists.
More than 500,000 people are expected to visit Marseille during the Games, and not just for the sailing.
When we were booking, we realised that the football game was on whilst we were here, so we thought, hey, we should go for sure.
The city will host 10 Olympic football matches, including women's and men's semi-finals. Business owners are hoping for a boost.
There'll be a huge number of tourists and Olympic fans. We're on the starting blocks.
Also on the starting blocks, the hundreds of locals who've signed up to be Olympic volunteers.
I've always wanted to take part and experience the Olympic Games from the inside. I'm looking forward to helping all the athletes who are here.
Marseille's Olympics kicks off on Wednesday evening when France's men's football team faces the United States.
Hopefully, no whales off the coast of Marseille. I say that because 2 occupants of a fishing vessel are safe after a whale resurfaced right under their boat. Have a look at this, the whale coming up off the coast of New Hampshire, flipping over a 23-foot-long centre console boat. The occupant thrown out as the vessel capsized, causing panic on the faces of those watching events unfold as well. Both onlookers, the whale apparently not injured like that. Even the vessel salvaged as well, but lucky escape there off the coast of New Hampshire. That's the latest on France 24. More coming up very shortly.
The anti-government protests resume on Tuesday in Kenya as 2 groups clash, one supporting President William Ruto while the other against the regime.
Farmers and signed a declaration in Beijing on ending a year-long rift, Chinese state media said Tuesday.
Another round of anti-government protests were witnessed across Kenya in various cities on Tuesday. There was an apparent clash between two major conflicting groups, one supporting the government while the other against the regime of President William Ruto. The protesting youths blamed the police for the clashes. The police are just
biased.
The UK's new Home Secretary criticized the failed proposal by ex-British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to relocate migrants to Rwanda, calling it a shocking waste of taxpayers' money totaling £700 million. Upon assuming office this month, Keir Starmer, the successor of Sunak, swiftly put an end to the controversial plan. Sunak's initiative to halt the influx of asylum seekers crossing the English Channel from France, known as stopping the boats, faced legal challenges and drew criticism from various human rights groups. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, highlighted that the cost of the unsuccessful plan included £290 million in payments to Rwanda, as well as the expenses for chartering flights that never departed, detaining and then releasing hundreds of individuals, and funding over 1,000 civil servants to carry out the initiative. She also revealed to lawmakers that the prior government had planned to use over £10 billion of taxpayers' money to bust the
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris has reportedly gained enough pledged delegates to likely nomination. In the event of a face-off between Donald Trump and her, the vote of black citizens will be important. Speaking on Monday, this New Yorker is part of a group of voters called the Never Trumpers.
In the Egyptian coastal city of Alexandria, summer visitors are flocking to the 19th book fair in the city's modern library. There are 77 publishers at this year's fair, which will also feature 160 cultural events involved.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Singh. At this hour, Typhoon Gaimi barrels towards the Taiwanese coast after killing 8 people in the Philippines. Parts of metropolitan Manila under knee-deep flood water, leaving cars and commuters stranded. China invokes Israel's ire after brokering a deal between rival Palestinian factions. The landmark agreement signed in Beijing includes forming a unity government for post-war Gaza. Kamala Harris has hit the campaign ground running. She's sharpening her election message against Republican nominee Donald Trump on issues such as abortion and economic opportunity.
Assembly starts August 20 on ABC TV and ABC iView.
Well, nuclear reactors of unknown size and numbers will form part of the coalition's big target strategy for the next election. And within their options, still uncosted and unspecified apart from locations, are small modular reactors. Now, these are being designed, planned and licensed around the world, but not yet operating as commercial power generators. Well, today, a group representing engineers and scientists has taken a look at when these modular reactors could be worth looking at for Australia. The answer, in short, is not just yet, and maybe not for many, many years to come. We'll bring you their analysis and cover much more besides this Thursday. From Canberra, recognising traditional custodians around here, I'm Greg Jennett. You're watching Afternoon Briefing. Also on the program today, exasperation with politics and a complete lack of interest in attending compulsory elections is taking hold in this country. If you check turnout figures from last year's referendum and recent by-elections, you'll see that numbers are well below where they used to be. Now, Parliament's powerful committee that keeps a watch on electoral matters is taking a long look into this in an inquiry into civics awareness and education. It's taken evidence in the Northern Territory today and yesterday, where low enrolment has been a feature for a whole range of reasons locally there. We'll talk to the committee's chair about ideas being considered to encourage re-engagement and also about the topical matter of fake electoral advertising material. That's coming up a little later this hour. First though, let's look at small modular nuclear reactors. They hold a lot of promise in the eye.
Hello everybody, very good morning to you. It is 7 o'clock coming up on today's programme. Sir Keir Starmer makes good on a threat of suspensions after 7 Labour MPs rebel in one of the first tests of his leadership.
Plus, after the British Army's most senior serving officer warned the UK must be ready for war in 3 years, we'll hear from the former Defence Minister, Tobias Ellwood.
And after avoiding the question yesterday, James Cleverly has thrown his hat into the ring to become the next Conservative leader.
Yeah, who'd have thought it? It's Wednesday, the 24th of July. Sir Keir Starmer suspends 7 Labour MPs from the Parliamentary Party after they rebel on a vote over the 2-child benefit cap. A 24-year-old man is arrested in Gillingham on suspicion of attempted murder after a soldier is stabbed near his barracks. Sky News hears how several serving and former female paramedics were pressured for sexual favours by colleagues and bosses for promotion or to keep their jobs. Britain's joint most decorated female Olympian, Charlotte Dujardin, is out of the Olympics after being provisionally suspended for a video allegedly showing her hitting a horse's leg several times. The Royals get a pay rise of £45 million after a bumper year for the Crown estate. And John Mayall, the father of British blues and an influence to the likes of Eric Clapton and Mick Fleetwood, dies aged 90.
This is DW News, live from Berlin. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris kicks off her campaign to become president.
And we have an election to win!
Her bid to win the Democratic Party nomination is gaining momentum with more endorsements from Democratic leaders. Also on the program, a call for help in the U.S. state of Illinois ends with death for a black woman shot in the face by a police officer. He's now charged with murder in a case that's reviving debate over racial bias in law enforcement. And a potential polio outbreak in Gaza. The WHO expresses extreme concern at traces of the virus found in wastewater in the Strip and fears it could spread without vaccination.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.